empty, excepting for the jury. The press is really not covering it other than through an outside room with television cameras that closed circuit show the proceedings. So they sense something is unusual. And then they, of course, see the former president of the United States sitting there and know that, this is a very savvy jury pool and jury that emerged because New York is well educated and fairly attentive to these kinds of events and knows the significance of what's going on.
In addition to those 12, we have these 6 alternates. But given how high profile and high stakes this trial is, do you think that 6 is enough?
Good question. I think this weekend will tell us if there's a problem with those that were seated already. Obviously, they'll come in and tell the judge they have a problem or they think they've been identified. It's very unusual to have an anonymous jury. That happened during Watergate at some of the big trials. They were sequestered juries that were really anonymous and remained anonymous for decades. Only a few who wanted to be identified ever came forward. So it is a new tension for them. They're a group of strangers that are getting together to make a very big decision. So it's got to be certain stress levels that they're not used to.
And certainly there are going to be plenty of people who are trying to uncover their identities. And John, prosecutors have refused to reveal the witness list with the defense, and they're citing Trump's previous tweets about witnesses. Judge Merchan says that he won't be forcing them to hand it over. Do you think the judge made the right move?
I think he did. He was sending a message in that move that indeed he agreed that Mr. Trump could abuse the information. So they've withheld until very late on Sunday night. They're apparently going to give the first witness that the government is going to call. But the protocol is, and the courtesy is normally to provide who your first 3 or 6 witnesses might be so that the defense can prepare and be ready for cross-examination. Because of Trump's tweets, because his effort to influence the proceedings through out-of-court statements, he has put them as potential targets. So they want to be very careful. And the government is exercising its right not to be courteous because Trump is not paying that favor back.
There is this major question hanging over all this, whether the former president will take the stand. If you were advising him, would you tell him to?
It's very unusual for a defendant to take the stand because, particularly in a situation like Donald Trump, where he is known to be a terrible witness. His depositions are bad. His few court appearances have been disasters. It would just be almost inconceivable that he do so, and very high theater should he choose to. Somewhat suicidal, actually, because it opens him up to cross-examination on everything relating to his character and truthfulness. And we know he's pretty vulnerable in that area.
Well, one thing is certain, it is going to be a remarkable and historic week. John Dean, thanks so much for your thoughts today.
Thanks, Alex.
That are made against Donald Trump and why they matter. Why should ordinary Americans, to Aisha's point about, Fox News doing the heavy lifting, why should they care about this?
Well, look, there's 2 parts of this, Eamon. There's the legal part, and we go through this. This is clearly a textbook case of falsifying business records. There was no legal fees, right? They make a fake retainer agreement. They make fake invoices. Donald Trump pays the checks to Michael Cohen so that the nation in 2016 doesn't find out that Donald Trump had an affair, allegedly, and we believe he did, with Stormy Daniels, that we learned about that right before the election when the Access Hollywood tape had blown up. There's something else, though, that I think is actually worse for Trump. And that's the falling asleep in the courtroom. You don't have to understand law. You don't understand any kind of nuance. The guy is 77, and he's fallen asleep 3 times in 1 week. And what's happened? Jon Stewart's made fun of it. Jimmy Kimmel's made fun of it. Stephen Colbert's made fun of it. He's become a punchline for that. That transcends politics. The average person, they might not get the legal issues here. They might not get the politics. But they know a 77-year-old man doesn't have the stamina to stay awake in a case where he's charged with 34 felonies. How can he be president? And to me, that's the most damaging thing. It's not the conviction. It's this issue. Everyone gets it. He can't stay awake because he's just not the same person he was 4 years ago.
Renato, this criminal trial is unique and a stressful experience for the jurors who have been tasked with it.
Stand out in how you draw him. I want to show one of your sketches today. We're going through some of them, but this one, it appears in this one that his eyes are closed. What was happening here?
My apologies, ma'am. I was sitting 50 feet away. I was having such a struggle to try and get those eyeballs in a decent way. It was just not the best advantage.
Vantage point to see.
Yeah. I mean, later in the day, he was more cooperative and he turned a couple of times.
And knowing that there was someone there, in a sense, right? That he could turn to your vantage point and see you.
No, he wasn't doing anything for me. He was just talking to his attorney. He was sitting right there on his right.
All right.
And I had my binoculars on, so any look that he gives at all is going...
You could tell.
I'm going to grab it, yeah.
All right. So could you tell what was happening in that moment, or no? That's just what just stood out to you to capture
just when he was talking to his lawyers about, various jurors and what he thought of them. This was what was unique about this jury was that the first day they called, I think, 96 people, and I think 50 people raised their hand when the judge said, raise your hand if you can't be fair. And then today there was a whole little train of them like trailing in saying, oh, Judge, I slept on it. I can't be fair.
Oh, that's what you saw today?
Yeah, even more were dropping like flies. So this is a unique situation. Usually people have all these other excuses, my vacation, my child, my job, this, that.
Not in this case, but interesting what you say, coming in, I slept on it. How did they react, the jurors that you saw, when the ones, and I was just going through some of the basics that we know about them, biographical, but when you saw their faces when they realized they had been chosen?
Well, they had to walk right past me, which was really quite fascinating. So I got the whole, down the runway look. And, there was the first guy, number one, and he was almost militaristic.
This is the four-person, the man from Ireland?
He had a real military kind of presence about him. Everybody felt like they looked as if they'd been hit by a ton of bricks when they heard the news that they were actually chosen. One woman went scurrying by and she was smiling.
So she seemed happy.
She was happy. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, so let's show another one of your sketches.
Oh, and that older man, the one who said that he found Trump interesting?
Yes. He was older?
Yeah, he was an older guy. I couldn't get over him, listening to him say, okay, you've got to stop using that word interesting because it really means something else. But anyway, he got selected, and I thought, well, we actually have a jury of his peers. This is a guy who's probably close to Trump's age.
And was close to Trump's age. So you saw diversity in age.
Mostly,
and it sounds
mostly
like
young ones, mostly young.
Mostly young. All right, so what was, from what you could tell, Trump's reaction as these, I talked about a moment where, he was muttering. My understanding is that particular juror didn't end up, for whatever reason, whether it was struck or not, on the jury. But what was Trump's reaction? Could you tell to anyone who was chosen?
No, I really could not.
You couldn't?
Because I'm 50 feet away sitting smack dab behind his head.
So were there other moments that stood out to you when he did turn and you're looking through your binoculars, which I think...
I loved it. I loved it when the judge, reprimanded him for muttering, because that was the woman who had videotaped celebrations when he hadn't won the election.
Right, Biden celebrations in New York City. Right?
Yeah, right. And he was beside himself with that piece of information, and the judge scolded him, which I thought was great.
Oh, and it was clear he was angry about it.
Yeah, and he tilted his head back, and he had to agree. He tilted his head back and shut his eyes when the judge said that.
Oh, really? Okay. And from his interactions with his lawyers, could you tell anything else about, I don't know, his demeanor or his feeling or his emotion in those interactions?
Now you're making me wish I was in the overflow room. Because they have a camera
zoomed in on his face.
Straight on him,
Yes. But it's different. In this case, you are, because you're in the room, you have the vibe. You have the kind of electricity of the actual presence.
I was excited to get the feeling for the people, because they really do come from all walks of life. And it's kind of shocking to see them coming in, and you think, I wonder what Trump would think of this one or of that one or of this one. None of them, I don't think.
So old Donnie's making a big mistake. He's making a massive mistake. His mistake around wanting to testify is such a massive blow. And here's the thing, he loses either way because he has been talking about wanting to testify for weeks, if not months. That means the jury likely heard that. Now, they're going to be told that Donald Trump has a right to testify or not testify, and that can't be used against him. That's very true. So if Donald Trump chooses not to testify, they can't force him to, and the jury will be commanded to say, we are not allowed to take that, unlike in civil court, as a reason to find someone guilty or not guilty. But there's nothing said about somebody who wanted to testify and then all of a sudden didn't, and what that does to your mind. And Trump has been bragging unavoidably in international global media, technically because our airwaves go out to space across our solar system. Donald Trump has been telling everybody who's listening that I want to testify and that it's a bad idea, is what we know, and he's probably not going to do it. And when he backs down after saying in court and outside of court and all that he's going to, it's going to hurt him. And another thing he's forgetting is that we're getting a lot more info than he thought. So politically and legally, this is all devastating. And whether it's reporters in the room talking about how he's falling asleep, or whether it's the court, the artists drawing how decrepit and sick and stinky and evil he is, it's going to catch up to him. And that's why there's fights at Mar-a-Lago, because he knows he's screwed, and his lawyers, despite trying, I don't want to defend Trump lawyers, but they're trying to control him. They cannot do it.